Muchísimas gracias a todos los participantes por acompañarnos en Zoom y también en YouTube. Esta sesión informativa servirá para conocer todos los detalles acerca del estado de protección temporal o TPS que fue anunciado recientemente por el Departamento de Seguridad Nacional de los Estados Unidos. Good afternoon and welcome to the information session about TPS for Venezuelans in the United States. Thank you to all of the participants for joining us today in Zoom and in YouTube. This session will focus on providing information about temporary protected status, or TPS, which was recently announced by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Mi nombre es Cristina Khan y soy directora de UCF Global en la Universidad de Florida Central. Me voy a encargar a presentar nuestros ponentes. Esta sesión se está grabando y estará disponible en el canal de YouTube de UCF Global. Tenemos mucha información para compartir acerca del TPS. Por ejemplo, ¿qué es el TPS? ¿Cuáles son los requisitos y beneficios de TPS? ¿Y cómo solicitarlo? Por favor, utilice el chat si tienen algunas preguntas durante la sesión. Gracias a todos que nos enviaron preguntas antes de la sesión hoy. Incorporamos casi todas las preguntas que recibimos en la presentación. My name is Christina Khan, and I am the director of UCF Global at the University of Central Florida. I'll be your host for today's session. This session is being recorded and will be available on UCF Global's YouTube channel. We have a lot of information to share with you today about TPS. For example, what is TPS? What are the requirements and benefits? And how do you apply? Please use the chat if you have questions throughout today's session. I'd like to thank everyone who pre-submitted questions. We have incorporated almost all of the questions we received into the presentation today. Es un gran placer tener la oportunidad de brindar esta sesión informativa a la comunidad venezolana aquí en Florida Central. Estoy acompañado por el abogado Nayef Mubarak de la Oficina de Leyes Mubarak Law, el grupo estudiantil venezolano de UCF VenSA y también la vicepresidenta asociada de UCF Global, Natalie Chendia. It's a great pleasure to be able to offer this information session to the Venezuelan community here in Central Florida. I'm accompanied today by Attorney Nayef Mubarak of Mubarak Law, the Venezuelan Student Association at UCF VenSA, and the Associate Vice President of UCF Global, Natalie Chendia. Ahora, si Natalie está, if Natalie is here, we can go ahead into her session. Okay, Brendan, if you wouldn't mind to advance the slides, please. And to the next one. Okay, and the next one. All right, I'm going to share a little bit more about the services offered by UCF Global. For those who may not be familiar, UCF Global is the hub for everything international at UCF, and we offer many programs and services to support the community, the international community. We have several programs to learn English, such as our intensive English program, and as well as the online English program, as well as immigration support services for all of our international students at UCF. Now I would like to pass it to Oscar Ronderos, who is the coordinator of public relations of VenSA. Ahora se lo paso a Oscar Ronderos, quien es coordinador de relaciones públicas de VenSA.
Well, hello everybody. How are you guys doing today? I think we have a VenSA slide later on, but let me introduce myself first. My name is Oscar Ronderos. I'm the public relations coordinator for the Venezuelan Student Association, also known as VenSA, and we're just getting started. This year just recruiting people as much as possible. So if you happen to be Venezuelan, or you know a Venezuelan, or you just want to be part of the Venezuelan movement going on at UCF, we're open to everyone. So feel free to come in at any time. We can assist you, and we could definitely put you in touch with the people and the members of VenSA as well. We do a little networking meeting, so you get to know all the Venezuelans that are around in the University of Central Florida. So if you guys are interested in having Venezuelan friends, this is the place for you. Also, we also are promoting a lot of sporting events. Due to COVID, it's getting a little complicated, but we usually do a lot of tennis. We also put some soccer and volleyball. So we're trying to make it work out. So we also are getting people involved within the college. And we also work on some professional developments. We are currently planning on doing resume critiques or LinkedIn profiles revisions. So if you guys also want to develop yourself professionally, VenSA is a good place for you as well. And we also promote some cultural engagement, such as if you're interested in the Venezuelan culture, like the dishes, like the music, the dances, or anything like that. We're here to promote that as well, and also spread the word about the Venezuelan culture as well. Bienvenidos a todos. Mi nombre es Oscar Ronderos. Soy el coordinador de Relaciones Públicas de la Asociación de Estudiantes Venezolanos en la Universidad Central de Florida. Es un club que está abierto a todo el mundo, venezolanos, amigos de venezolanos, los que no sean venezolanos, pero quieren ser parte del movimiento venezolano en UCF. Estamos abiertos para todo el mundo. Hacemos bastantes reuniones para conocernos a todos entre nosotros. Con el COVID ha sido un poco complicado, por supuesto, pero hacemos muchas reuniones de Zoom. Tratamos de mantenerlo todo bajo las regulaciones, por supuesto, del COVID, pero también hacemos varios eventos deportivos. Estamos promoviendo ahorita bastante el tenis, el fútbol y el voleibol, así que si les interesa mucho el fútbol y mantenerse activo, VenSA es una opción para ustedes. También promovemos bastante desarrollo profesional, si les interesa revisar su currículum, su resumen y también su perfil de LinkedIn. Nosotros también ofrecemos esa ayuda si les interesa, pero también ofrecemos bastante promoción cultural, así que si están interesados en la cultura de Venezuela, como la gastronomía, como la música, como todo tipo de cosas que relacionan la cultura, pues este es el club ideal para ustedes. Así que si están interesados, no se duden en contactarme conmigo y yo los pongo en contacto con todos los miembros del board. If you're interested in joining VenSA, feel free to reach out to me, like send me a private message right now, and we'll put you in contact not only with me, but with all the VenSA board as well, so you could be part of us.
Gracias, Oscar, por todo su apoyo y también al grupo VenSA por el apoyo en hacer este evento hoy. Thank you so much to you, Oscar, and also the group, VenSA group, for all of their support for today's event. Next, I'd like to invite our Associate Vice President of UCF Global, Natalie Chendia, to say a few words. Natalie?
Thank you, Cristina. It's my pleasure to be here. Es un placer estar con ustedes. Estamos muy felices después de un año muy difícil de tener esta buena noticia que nuestros hermanos y compañeros de Venezuela tienen este alivio del gobierno federal. Yo sé que para los venezolanos ha sido muy difícil, tal como todos los inmigrantes, dejar su país, y muchos tienen mucho nerviosismo porque no saben qué van a hacer con la parte de su situación migratoria. Entonces estamos felices de poder brindarle esta sesión con nuestro querido amigo Nayef Mubarak, que es amigo no solamente de UCF, sino que es un exalumno de UCF. Así que muy orgullosa de ti, Nayef. I'm not sure if you understand what I'm saying.
Sí,
I know you speak Spanish. So, pero muchas gracias. Nuestra misión en UCF Global no solamente es ayudar a los estudiantes internacionales, pero también ayudar a la comunidad y con nuestros diferentes servicios. Y estamos muy orgullosos de hace un año. Estamos dando clases gratuitas para los que quieren aprender inglés, y también tenemos nuestros programas de inglés que son más académicos y para purposes, I can't say purposes, de profesionales. So, estamos aquí para servirlos y para ayudarlos, y una vez más, felicitaciones, y esperamos que cualquier cosa se comuniquen con nosotros. UCF siempre está preocupada de la comunidad, y parte de nuestra misión es ayudar a la comunidad que está cerca de UCF y más allá, a que tengan un porvenir y un futuro mejor. Así que muchas gracias a todos los que están aquí por ayudarnos, y sobre todo a los que están participando. Hasta luego.
Gracias, Natalie. Es un gran placer presentar al abogado Nayef Mubarak de la Oficina de Leyes Mubarak Law. Las oficinas de Mubarak Law están ubicadas en el centro de Orlando. Abogado Mubarak es un experto en inmigración y trabaja sin cansar por sus clientes. Es exalumno de UCF y está muy involucrado en la comunidad. Él mantiene posiciones de liderazgo en la Asociación Estadounidense de Abogados de Inmigración, AILA, y la Asociación de Abogados de Orange County. Él es un gran defensor de la comunidad inmigrante de Florida Central. It's my pleasure to introduce Attorney Nayef Mubarak from Mubarak Law. Mubarak Law is located in downtown Orlando. Attorney Mubarak is an expert in immigration and works tirelessly for his clients. He is a UCF alum and is very involved in the community. He holds leadership positions in the American Immigration Lawyers Association, AILA, and the Orange County Bar Association. He's a strong advocate for the Central Florida immigrant community. Ahora se lo paso al abogado Mubarak. Él va a compartir con nosotros toda la información acerca de TPS. And I'll go ahead and pass it to Attorney Mubarak, who will share with us all of the information about TPS.
Hola, buenas tardes. Soy Nayef Mubarak y gracias por esta oportunidad para ser con ustedes. Y gracias al trabajo de Cristina y Oscar y Natalie, este es una grande responsabilidad por las comunidades to support each other. Necesito decir que entiendo más de que puedo hablar. So, en esta presentación me voy a hablar la mayoría en español, pero tengo conmigo, en inglés, perdón, mi asistente de 9 años, Gloria López de Solorzano. Ella es una venezolana también y ella está con nosotros en este día para ayudarme. Ustedes pueden entender todo. Tenemos bastante preguntas y espero que tenemos las respuestas que quieren saber. So we can go ahead and start with the slides, and thank you for everybody who's joining us. We do have the slides in both Spanish and English, so I think it will be fairly straightforward to understand. And then also we will be answering many questions that you all have submitted in advance, so thank you for that. I understand Spanish than better I can speak, as you may have heard already. And we do have Gloria Lopez, who is going to assist in the translation. And we're going to talk about some of the nuances with TPS. Si necesita un permiso de trabajo o solo una registración. All these things, I hope that it's going to provide you guys with some information to protect your future and your status here in the United States. Okay? All right, so vamos a empezar con ¿qué es TPS? So TPS, of course, is designated by the Secretary of Homeland Security about countries who are in, dangerous or disaster conditions due to political unrest, natural disasters, or things of that nature. It is not a law that passes. However, it's typically issued by the Department of Homeland Security and then published in the federal regulations. So we can go to the next slide. Who designates the country? Secretary of Homeland Security. The DHS, they can also determine what countries and how long the period will be for. What we have here is that for years, we have been lobbying. I'm sure maybe VenSA or even other communities in Central Florida have been really working hard, including myself and Ayla, to get this for Venezuelans. So this is a very important reason because there's been so much unrest in Venezuela and it's just dangerous and it's a lot of people, it's not safe for them to go home, and that is the purpose of this temporary protected status. Okay. So there's several countries that currently have been designated for TPS prior to Venezuela. I'm happy to see Venezuela on this list, but you see Haiti, El Salvador, Syria, and Yemen. So some of these countries have been on TPS for more than 10 years, 10 años, 15 años, renewing TPS constantly. And this is why it's very important that we consider the importance of registration, which I'll talk about in just a few moments. So in Haiti, for example, when they had that earthquake back in 2010, that's when TPS was designated for Haiti, for example. So it's been 11 years with that TPS status. And so we'll explain how it gets renewed when we get to some of your questions. Okay, TPS para los venezolanos. First and foremost, you must be a Venezuelan citizen. Or if you're a stateless person, una persona sin nacionalidad, como yo, mi familia son palestinos, no tienen status. They're stateless people, right? But if you're a stateless person in Venezuela, that was your last home, you could still qualify. Venezuelan citizens, of course, are eligible. And I know we have so many clients in my office that tiene ciudadano por Italiano, España, y también los venezolanos. So you can still qualify if you have multinational status. It depends on your last residence, and we'll get to that later. So first and foremost, are you a Venezuelan citizen or are you a stateless person who last resided there? Number two, continuous residence. So on March 8th, 2021, this announcement for TPS was made. So continuous residence simply means at some point in time, you were living here. So we even have people who were flying in on an airplane that day, and we would try to make the argument that they have been living here as long as the announcement, they arrived prior to the announcement. I mean, that's the creative lawyer argument we want to make, right? And then physically present on March 9th. This might disqualify a lot of people if they took a trip, if they were here before on a tourist visa or an ESTA, and then they traveled and were not here on March 9th, then they may not be eligible for this. Okay, open initial registration. This is so critical, okay? And we are going to talk about, how do you want to do a work permit? Are you going to, violate your status? But I want to talk about registration. If you do not register within this period from March 9th to September 5th, 2021, you could lose the opportunity for TPS forever. And Gloria, if you can translate that for me, because it's an important point I want to make sure everybody understands. So if you do not register during the original period, you will lose this opportunity forever unless it's redesignated. Gloria, can you go ahead and repeat that in Spanish?
Por supuesto. El abogado Mubarak insiste en que si ustedes no se registran durante el periodo de inscripción, registración señalado por la Oficina de Inmigración, ustedes podrían perder para siempre la oportunidad de registrarse. Es importantísimo que lo hagan en ese periodo porque si no podrían perder definitivamente la oportunidad por siempre.
Okay, so the only way to re-register after this date is if the Secretary of Homeland Security redesignates Syria, right? And that allows the window to open again. So that's the only time it would happen. If it doesn't reopen the registration period, they could continue to extend TPS for 10 years, but if you never got in this 6-month period, you will not get into it.
La única manera que se reabra el periodo de inscripción inicial es que fuese en el futuro designado nuevamente por el Departamento de Inmigración, pero eso no es una garantía. Por tanto, esta ventana que está abierta es la que deben aprovechar.
Okay, so we can talk about that if there's more questions about it, but we'll go to the next slide for now. So we explain this, Venezuelan nationality or a stateless person. So here I want to talk about other nationalities. And we have a lot of clients who, as I mentioned, are Italian citizens as well. And they're in the United States on an E2 visa. Or maybe you're here studying and your parents have an E2 visa and you came in on an Italian passport. Just because you entered on the Italian passport does not make you ineligible. You're still a Venezuelan national, and then we want to demonstrate that you were last residing in Venezuela before you arrived here. Gloria, you want to hit that one too?
Ok, el abogado señala que aun cuando entraras con otra nacionalidad, con un pasaporte de otra nacionalidad, por ejemplo, con una visa, para hacer una visa de 2, debes demostrar que eres venezolano y que debes haber vivido en Venezuela últimamente.
Okay, so the issue is, was there a firm resettlement? Sometimes we have some Venezuelans who went to Chile or they went to another country, and if they've been living there for several years, then, or a certain amount of time, the US government can say, no, you have resettled in another country prior to coming to the US.
I'm sorry.
Sure. So the resettlement, meaning that you have resided in another country prior to living in the US and you had a status in that country.
Ok, lo que dice es de demostrar que lo que llaman no fair resettlement es demostrar por qué no puedes seguir viviendo en el país de donde tienes otra nacionalidad o donde estabas viviendo anteriormente que no sea Venezuela.
O si estaba en un país como México sin estatus, este no es firm resettlement, porque no tiene estatus legal en este país. Pero si estaba en un país, tiene estatus y tiene ciudadanía en otro país antes que llegue a los Estados Unidos, you can be considered as a firm resettlement. Okay? All right. So there is somebody who did ask a question there. So if I lived in another place, but I never became a firm resident, that's going to depend on your status, right? Were you just there visiting? Were you there studying? Or were you there as an Italian in Italy living? So these are typically case-by-case basis. And I hate that answer because you're going to hear it a lot from every lawyer. It depends, right? Because everybody's situation is different. So you want to make sure that you meet with somebody. It doesn't have to be me. I tell, as long as it's an AILA attorney, an immigration that has AILA, it's typically you should be in some decent hands. Now that's just something to look for, okay?
Déjame, Nayef, si quieres, déjame try to point again about this. El abogado dice que, claro, cada caso va a ser diferente. Bajo qué situación la persona vivió en otro país que no sea Venezuela, puede ser que estuvo de visita, puede ser que estuvo estudiando, puede ser que estuvo trabajando, etcétera. Y la recomendación del abogado Mubarak es que para ese requerimiento es importante que un abogado los esté orientando. Buscar un abogado en AILA o en las maneras legales de buscar un abogado para que los pueda orientar de manera correcta y contestar esas preguntas.
Okay. So how do we demonstrate this first requirement? ¿Cómo puede demostrar el continuous residence, right? So we need to show evidence that you've been here, right? It doesn't, if you arrived 3 months ago, we will use your proof of your entry stamp. If you have bank accounts and shown that you've been here the entire time, then that's kind of some evidence that we use. So if you see on the bottom, the second bullet says, ¿Qué pasa si hay una ruptura de la residencia continua? If it's less than 90 days, if menor de 90 días, we can overcome this break, okay? We need to demonstrate what was the reason for the travel. Where did you go? What was the purpose? And again, we've done this before for Syrian nationals who were maybe going to get the last of their things in Dubai, or they have a Jordanian passport too, the dual nationality, and we were able to overcome it. But if you have this type of complications, you definitely want to speak to an attorney about it. Now, a lot of the questions you guys are asking, we're going to answer them, I believe. And if you have more questions, I'm sure I'm happy to speak with VenSA or UCF, and we can do this again. And we are going to I'm putting all of these questions on my website as well. And so if you need anything, you just let us know. Okay. All right. Next slide, please. So we did talk about this, the registration, and this is just really important. So we can move on to the next one. Benefits. Okay, beneficios del TPS. This is very important, but it's also dangerous. Un poco peligroso si tiene status F1, right? We want to make sure to protect your status, okay? Yes, tú puedes aplicar por un permiso de trabajo under TPS, pero si trabaja, es una violación de su status estudiar for the F1 status. So if you want to preserve your F1 status, you need to very much be careful, right? Now, another benefit would be advanced parole. Advanced parole document is a great benefit. Perhaps, your status, your visa expired on your passport and you're Venezuelan, and it's like going to be impossible to go get another appointment in another country, especially plus we have COVID and Corona to add to the complications. With an advanced parole document under TPS, it gives you permission to travel. internationally. You cannot travel until it's approved. Okay, so I don't want you leaving, no pueda salir del país sin el permiso de viaje está aprobado, sin el TPS aprobado. Okay, if you abandon any of these things, you would can get your status, your application even denied. So protection from removal and preserving your status. Protection from removal, un ejemplo es como si fuera el status de estudiar de F1 y ahora no tiene status aquí. Migración puede abrir un caso de deportación porque usted está aquí sin status. Pero si tiene TPS, no pueden physically remove you from the United States. And Gloria, you want to repeat that. So this is why, again, the registration is going to be important, because maybe in the future, after you study, you want to have some protection.
El abogado está explicando que con respecto a la protección contra deportaciones, por ejemplo, supongamos que usted decidió dejar de estudiar y está inscrito con su TPS. En el futuro recibe una carta invitándolo que está en proceso de deportación, y una vez que es procesado, físicamente no puede ser deportado siempre y cuando tenga el TPS. Por tanto, es importante, una vez más, estar registrado, porque es una manera de protegerse con una posible deportación en el futuro.
Okay. Preserving status. So, let's say your family is here on a tourist visa, or you are on an F1. If you maintain your status on the F1 or the tourist visa until the TPS is approved, at the date from the TPS is approved, USCIS will consider you in lawful status. In the future, only if you're going to do an adjustment of status to a permanent residency, for example. So you're going to be put on pause, that's what we call tolling, as to what status you have at the time you approve. That doesn't mean you can do no wrong and you stay on the F1 forever, but it means that once at that moment in time, as long as you didn't violate, you were in status. And Gloria, you probably need to repeat that.
Okay. El abogado dice que supongamos estás en un estatus de F1 o de visa de turista. El abogado dice que estás en ese estatus y una vez que está aprobado el TPS, podrías dejar ya de estar en tu estatus. Nayef, I'm sorry. Could you tell me again? Once the TPS approved,
the status, as long as you maintain your status to the date of it was approved, in the future, you can be considered to have stayed in lawful status if you need to in the future.
Okay. Entonces, una vez que el TPS está aprobado, ya digamos, lo importante es seguir el estatus anterior, ya no está, ya pierde prioridad, y eso te podría mantener en estatus legal de ahí en el futuro.
Okay. So, for example, the only an easy example to show when this becomes beneficial, if you're married to a green card holder, the only way to adjust status inside the United States is if you're in lawful status. Okay. Si en el futuro está casado con un residente de los Estados Unidos, necesitas demostrar que estás en un status legal para adjust your status entre los Estados Unidos. If you're outside of status, si fuera un status, no puede aplicar por su residencia en los Estados Unidos si casar con un residente. For Americanos, it doesn't matter, okay? But for residents, this is a very small thing that I'd like to point out. So we can go to the next slide. So, okay. En la última día por President Trump, él hace un Deferred Enforced Departure, DED, por los venezolanos. So what is DED? Basically, it allows for a work permit, and it's basically, we're not going to remove people from Venezuela because of the situation. Now, for me, I would personally still register for TPS because the work permit period is for a longer amount of time, for 18 months. Also, TPS is constantly being renewed, and DED was an executive order under Trump. It's not in like the public regulations. So if Biden does not want to renew Trump's initiative next year, which, you know, a lot of times presidents from different parties don't do that, then DED may not be around. So if you took DED today, but you did not register for TPS, you could lose the opportunity. Now, there's, as I mentioned, like Haiti's been on it for 10 years, Nicaragua even longer. So there are, in my opinion, some longer lasting benefits with TPS, okay? So that's why I believe one should at least register. So let's say you just want to study and you don't want to work, just register. You don't need to pay for the work permit, but you need to register under the TPS application. And that way in the future, if you don't have a job offer, if you don't have OPT, at that point in time, your F1 status is going to end. You can then seek a work permit through TPS.
You want me to translate that?
Sure, you can do that for the, basically, these tips.
Yes, el abogado Mubarak da su opinión personal con respecto al DED, que es diferir la salida forzada, que está, digamos, como una orden ejecutiva del presidente Trump, expresidente Trump. Sin embargo, él considera que aun cuando eso está válido actualmente, es recomendable, una vez más, registrarse en el TPS, no perder los beneficios, ya como se explicaba anteriormente, podría ser extendido continuamente, como se ha pasado con otros países. Entonces es importante, pues, independientemente de este orden ejecutiva de Trump, que se registre en el TPS.
And also, on that note, there's somebody's asking, yes, so can you get a work permit later? Yeah, but that's why we want to register now. That's why I keep saying we must register in this window, okay? Don't lose this opportunity. Even if you have an asylum pending, I don't care. You register for TPS, okay? No necesito permiso de trabajo, pero necesita registrar, okay? No me importa si tiene F1 status, asylee status, OPT. I'm going to answer you guys all the same thing. Register for TPS.
Regístrense.
There's a lot of, you know, speculation. As lawyers, sometimes we are trying to guess what's going to be faster, what's going to work. So some of us are saying, well, maybe the DED work permit would be faster, right? Because maybe a lot more people are going to apply for TPS. So what we're doing to be creative is have register for TPS, but maybe file for the work permit with DED. Now, these are like just games to try to save some time, but again, everybody's case is different, and you should share that specific, you know, details and detalles and with your attorney, okay? And we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, another status. So, I know there's so many, bastante venezolanos con una aplicación de asilo pendiente y tienen permiso de trabajo por 2 años. So hay preguntas, ¿necesito pagar por otro permiso de trabajo con TPS o no? En mi opinión, no. No necesito permiso de trabajo porque tiene el derecho con respecto a la aplicación del asilo. Pero necesitamos registrar, right? Because si su aplicación por asilo está, como se dice, is just denied, no tiene status, right? Pero ahora tenemos los TPS, registramos antes 2 años, so podemos aplicar por un permiso de trabajo y vivir aquí porque hay TPS. So that's my, I don't know if that was clear, Gloria. If you think it's clear, we don't need to translate that. International students, again, just because you have a work permit under TPS does not mean you have the right to work under your F1 status, right? to preserve your F1 status, you need to do the same thing you've been doing before TPS. Same caseload, same restrictions, meaning no work. So this is something that you have to make a personal decision on as to what you're going to do to maintain this status. Now, again, maybe some of you want to continue to study and then get your work permit later if there's no other option, then you could always do that later, or you could even do it now. You're not gonna violate by simply getting the work permit, but if you work, you have worked and violated your status. So maybe in the future, you're like, I don't need it now, but maybe in 6 months I will. Then you apply now because it might take 4 or 6 months to get the work permit. So these are all things that you have to plan big picture.
Okay, let me help you with this. Para los estudiantes internacionales, entonces, aun cuando el TPS da el beneficio de solicitar un permiso para trabajar, pues ustedes no podrían hacerlo porque estarían violando uno de los requisitos de la visa de estudiante. Por tanto, sí, inscríbanse, regístranse, es importante. Y aun cuando pudiesen solicitarlo, el hecho de trabajar rompe los requerimientos de la visa de estudiante, la F1. El abogado sugiere que si en el futuro ustedes deciden dejar la F1 y quisieran trabajar, bueno, pueden solicitarlo y eso aproximadamente puede tardar 5 o 6 meses en que llegue la tarjeta de trabajo, pero recuerden registrarse en el TPS, pero los estudiantes internacionales o las F1 no deben trabajar.
Okay, so I saw a question that says, can I do a change of status from F1 to TPS? No, okay. Temporary protected status, technically speaking, is not a status, even though status is in the name. I know that's confusing, okay? But you cannot change from F1 to TPS. You can fall out of your F1 status, you can violate your F1 status, but you're not changing to TPS. So if you do fall out of status or you violate your status, you are protected under TPS so long as TPS is valid. So example, a year or two ago, President Trump said, no more TPS for Haiti. So all the Haitians for the last 10, 11 years that have been here, especially in Florida, we have a very large population. We're now worried what's going to happen to our future. So this is something that you have to keep in mind, that this is not a final solution, but it is a great solution when we don't have any other option, right? And more than that, it's better than a lot of things. If you with asylum, it's very hard to get. This is very clear who's going to qualify, who can travel. So this is something to think about when you are considering TPS. It's not a permanent solution, but it's definitely a good holding place.
El abogado está apuntando en este momento a preguntas que hacen que si es posible cambiar estatus de una F1, por ejemplo, a TPS. No existe eso de poder cambiar de estatus. Se solicita el TPS de manera paralela a lo que tengas en este instante, bien sea asilo, F1, visa de estudiante, visa de turista, etc. Es importante señalar que tienes el TPS, estás protegido por el TPS en el periodo que esté designado por la Oficina de Inmigración. O sea, en ese momento, desde ese comienzo hasta la fecha que termine, estás protegido por el TPS. Si no tienen otra solución a la mano, pues esa es la única que tienen, pero si tienen otras, deben tomar en cuenta que podría en el futuro no renovarse, no extenderse el TPS para los venezolanos. Es una posibilidad.
Okay, I see so many questions. I want to try to clarify again. The TPS no afecta su status, okay? Registration does not affect your status. Your actions will affect your status, right? Do you stop going to class? Do you start working? This is what affects your status. So if you register for TPS today, but then you graduate, then you now no longer have an F1 status. And at that point, you can apply for your work permit and you're going to fall out of your F1 status and or violate your status, and then you're not going to have unlawful presence because your TPS is already approved, and you can then apply for your work permit. So let's hit that. No, I'll repeat that, Gloria. Okay. Again, I saw the questions. Oh, what if I'm on OPT? What if I'm on F1? What if I'm an asylee? The registration does not affect your status, your actions do. And when you violate your status or fall out of status, you will not accumulate unlawful presence because of the fact that you have TPS.
Okay. El abogado está tratando de recordar, de hacer notar lo siguiente. El que te registres en el TPS no viola ningún estatus que tengas actualmente. Si tú tienes una visa de estudiante, si estás en proceso de asilo, el que te registres en TPS no viola tu estatus que tengas actualmente. Él da un ejemplo, por ejemplo, en el caso de alguien que esté por graduarse y tenga su visa de F1, ya está registrado para el TPS y cuando se gradúa ya termina su F1, en ese instante él puede entonces trabajar, ahí sí puede solicitar, por ejemplo, un permiso de trabajo basado en el TPS anteriormente aprobado.
Okay, and then in the future, people, what about if I want to do a PERM or an H-1B? Again, having TPS will not affect your status to do that, but you still have to meet the requirements and the eligibility, a lot of times maintaining your status. So some of you might ask, what is the benefit of maintaining my status when I can get a work permit? Well, if you want to do an H-1B and without leaving the US, then perhaps this might be maintaining your F1 status is worth it for you in that respect. So we can go on to the next slide. Okay, how to apply. So the forms are here. You can get them from uscis.gov. And these are the filing fees. I'm going to explain el formulario 821. Este es la registración de TPS. Esta es la forma necesita llenar para register for your TPS. And the cost is $135, right? If you want the work permit, it's $410. You don't have to get the work permit. If you're going to preserve your status, and you don't want to violate your F1 status, you don't have to get the work permit. If you already have asylum pending and you have a work permit under asylum, you don't have to get the work permit. So these are things to consider, but that's why the registration is cheap. So please, I beg you, register, okay? All right, go to the next slide. So yeah, here's the website for that, and avoid immigration scams. Okay. En Venezuela, notarios son diferentes de los notarios aquí en los Estados Unidos. Here, notario is usually somebody who just stamps a piece of paper because you have the identification and they can verify your identity. When you see a notario or a paralegal working without an attorney, and usually a big red flag, it says divorce, taxes, immigration, all these things in one place next to a bodega, right? You're gonna have a notario, right? And yeah, sometimes it's cheaper than an attorney. Maybe it'll save you $400 or $500. But I've been doing this for 11 years. I've seen people lose all of their money. They pay the notario the filing fees, they pay the notario their fees, and then the notario just leaves. And there's no license, there's no agency that can control this individual from going and just moving from place to place again. Gloria, if you can hit on that for me.
Of course. El abogado quiere hacer notar que los notarios en los Estados Unidos no es el mismo concepto de notarios que tenemos en Venezuela. En Venezuela, pues nuestros notarios son abogados, aquí no, aquí es un curso que se hace ya con tener un sello, un papel y ya estás listo. Podemos ver muchos anuncios en la calle, notarios que hacen impuestos, que hacen divorcios, inclusive algunos formularios de inmigración, posiblemente mucho más económico que un abogado. El punto está que cuando ustedes vean a un notario o inclusive a un paralegal trabajando sin un abogado, sin una oficina de abogados, deben tener cuidado. El abogado dice que en sus 11 años de profesión, de estar ejerciendo, ha visto muchos clientes que han perdido muchísimo dinero porque no hay manera, de repente el paralegal se desapareció, el notario se desapareció, no hay manera de señalarlos y tratar de ubicarlos y que les devuelvan dinero, bien sea de los aranceles que se pagaron o del trabajo en sí que hizo el notario, aparte después del desconocimiento que quizás pueda haber de esas personas con respecto al proceso de inmigración.
Y si hay información en su forma que no es correcto o es fraud, it's going to make problems, va a ser problemas para ustedes en el futuro. Y no hay excuse, oh, you know, I didn't complete the forms. You know, a lot of times notarios will just put whatever information to get you the work permit. And sometimes there's no need to lie, and they lie anyways because you told them you went on a 1-week vacation. And now that lie is going to follow you for the rest of your, you know, immigration life in the United States because you signed the form.
Importante esto que dice el abogado, aun cuando esa persona sea la que llene los formularios, ustedes están firmando esos formularios. En el momento que ustedes firman, ustedes están acusando o aceptando toda la información que ese paralegal o notario colocó en sus formularios. Muchas veces o algunas veces esas personas colocan información que no es correcta, que no es real, que no es verdadera, y ustedes podrían incurrir inclusive en casos de fraude o de mentira en el formulario, y es muy delicado, es muy peligroso eso. Por eso los puede llevar por siempre en el futuro en la espalda como un sello ese tipo de mala práctica.
Somebody asked about our consultations. Unfortunately, nos consultas no son gratis. Normalmente son $150, pero todos los estudiantes de UCF es $100. We always offer a $50 discount for the UCF students. And it's like a 30-minute full consultation. We will go over all of your options to see maybe there's something else available to you as well. Okay. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so now we're going to go through the questions. And can someone who has a pending political asylum application apply for TPS? Yes, you can. Sí, no hay ningún problema. Y again, everybody needs to register. If I have employment authorization from a pending asylum, do I need to apply? No necesita aplicar por un permiso de trabajo si tiene un permiso con su aplicación de asilo, pero necesita registrar. Who's going to count how many times I'm going to say that today? Register.
Regístrate la campaña.
Someone who has a pending, okay, we got that one. Can an individual apply for TPS? Okay. El TPS en este momento, en esta ley que tenemos, no hay derecho para aplicar por su residencia solo porque tiene un TPS, okay? Pero en el proposal de President Biden, si tiene TPS, es un poco más rápido para obtener la residencia si pasa esta ley nueva. So we need everybody to lobby VenSA or whoever it is to get some real immigration reform to happen, to provide solutions for people who have been here for so long and under this situation. So no, TPS by itself does not give you the green card. Also, TPS will not affect your green card application in the future if you get married, for example, to an American citizen, or if you where an employer is doing a perm labor certification for you. TPS does not affect it. So that's why we like to continue to say register, okay? I entered the US on a tourist visa a year and a half ago and filed an extension because of COVID. Yeah, I mean, you sound like you have all the requirements. I would want to I don't want to say yes, I don't know your personal situation, but if you're Venezuelan and you've been living here and you were physically present and continuously residing, whether or not you're in status or on an extension does not matter. So that's not going to prevent you from applying. Okay. For any application, there must be any foreign language document, any document not in English must be accompanied by a translation. So this does not need to be an official translation from the US Embassy. However, just somebody who can complete a certificate of accuracy that says they're fluent in both languages and they translated the document. You should send a copy of the original language, the translation, and the certificate. Gloria, if you want to hit that.
Yes, of course. El abogado está respondiendo, que dice que sí, es importante que se traduzca cualquier documento que no esté en el idioma inglés, debe ser traducido y debe estar acompañado por una certificación del traductor donde jura pues que habla los dos idiomas de manera fluida. Deben traducir cualquier documento que no esté en el idioma inglés al inglés para poder enviarlos a inmigración.
And don't ever send your original documents. Okay.
El abogado sugiere no enviar los documentos originales de inmigración.
And always keep a complete copy of your filing and use tracking, mail tracking, and don't use a money order, try to use a check, because these are all things that we can trace.
El abogado dice que siempre, siempre deben guardar una copia exacta de lo que están enviando a la oficina de inmigración. También sugiere tratar de pagar con cheques, ya que es una manera que ustedes pueden hacer un rastreo del monto que están pagando y que inmigración pues aceptó el cheque en sí.
So does applying TPS cause me to lose F1 status? No, registering does not cause you to lose the status. However, if you work, you could violate your F1 status.
Registrarse en TPS, de nuevo, registrarse en TPS no les afecta el estatus que tengan de visa de estudiante. Sin embargo, si solicitan el permiso de trabajo y comienzan a trabajar, ahí sí violan la visa de estudiante.
I saw a question in the comments that's not in the PowerPoint, so I'm going to answer it really fast. Does TPS allow for a driver's license if I came on a tourist visa? The answer is yes.
El abogado está contestando que si el registrarse al TPS le permite obtener una licencia de conducir, la respuesta es sí, sí les permite.
Okay, next slide. Okay, we kind of just answered this. No, right? You cannot work and maintain your status on your F1. You must be authorized to work under the F1, like in an OPT status. There are attorneys who believe otherwise, but I do not believe that's an accurate opinion. I think there's a confusion there, and I know that most universities are on the same page as me, including UCF. So if you want to maintain your status, you need to kind of comply with the restrictions and the requirements.
Una vez más, el abogado insiste que aun cuando el TPS les permita a los estudiantes, los que tienen visa F1, solicitar un permiso de trabajo y trabajar, él insiste que no deben trabajar a pesar que tengan el beneficio, ya que eso podría perjudicar el estatus o quebrantar los requerimientos del estatus de F1.
Y ahora tenemos una pregunta por Cristina.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm an international student, if I'm an international student, if I'm granted TPS, do I become eligible for in-state tuition? So the short answer is no, that it just applying for TPS doesn't necessarily make you in-state for tuition purposes. So at UCF, I know we have students from other universities on today's session, but students at UCF reclassification of your residency status for tuition is made either by the registrar's office for undergrad students or by the College of Graduate Studies. So you would need to talk with them to see, but just applying for TPS doesn't necessarily make you eligible for in-state tuition.
Do you want to translate that?
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Básicamente, Cristina está diciendo que el hecho de registrarse en el TPS no necesariamente significa que ustedes puedan optar por la matrícula del Estado. Ella sugiere pues, consultar al oficial designado en donde estén estudiando. Y una vez más, no necesariamente implica que ustedes tengan la matrícula del Estado si están bajo el TPS.
Okay, I saw a question about travel. When you apply for advanced parole, you can travel after it's approved, okay? If you're an F1. Now, if you're an asylee or something more complicated, or you have criminal history, or you entered the country without inspection, there's no guarantee with advanced parole. It literally says so on the paper. This is not a guaranteed re-entry. Now, in my 11 years, I've never seen somebody get stuck, but I tell everybody the same thing. And I just want Gloria to repeat that too.
Of course. El abogado quiere recordar o quiere hacer notar que aun cuando tendrían el derecho de solicitar un permiso para viajar, hay ciertos casos donde él no lo sugiere. Por ejemplo, los que están solicitando asilo no deberían viajar fuera de los Estados Unidos. Aquellos que tienen algún historial criminal no deberían viajar. Y alguna otra circunstancia, si usted considera que tiene algunas inconvenientes, algunas cosas que no están claras, complicadas en su caso, debe consultar a un abogado antes de salir de Estados Unidos o inclusive antes de solicitar.
Any international travel, see an attorney.
Para cualquier viaje internacional, sugiere el abogado, recomienda que vea a un abogado antes de solicitarlo, antes de viajar.
Okay. I would still, so this question, soy un estudiante F1, es entrenamiento practical opcional. Should you file for TPS? I would register, right? Just register for TPS. You could always get the work permit later. I saw somebody ask a question, I'm graduating and what should I do? Well, if you don't have any more OPT or there's no other option for you and you're all out of status, then not, you know, for me, it's no brainer, definitely register.
El abogado, una vez más, les recuerda que el registrarse les permite poder optar en el futuro para los beneficios del TPS. Por tanto, cuando dicen la pregunta es si es recomendable inscribirse en el TPS, definitivamente sí. Después que termine su F1, tendrían la opción de trabajar de acuerdo al requerimiento, al beneficio del TPS.
And I do want to say that I have a lot of family in Venezuela. I went in 2010, and it's a beautiful country and a beautiful people, and I really hope things get better over there. And I think Gloria will attest to my honorary Venezuelan family here. But let's see what next question we have. Is recommended what are advantages or disadvantages? I mean, again, if you work, you can fall out of status. Of course, there's a lot of advantages, protection from removal, work permit, advanced parole. Those are the benefits that we discussed. So we can go to the next one. Okay, so this is one important question. What happens to my F1 status if TPSs are not renewed? Well, if you maintained your F1 status, you can stay in your F1 status. If you stopped going to class or violated, then you're not going to revert back to the status that you were in. You know, there's like maybe a debate out there as to whether or not you can try to change status before your TPS status expires, but you know, that all depends on a case by case.
Ok, con respecto a esta pregunta, ¿qué sucede con mi estatus F1 si expira el TPS? Si usted mantuvo su estatus F1, no debe haber ningún problema. si dejó de asistir a clase y quebrantó los requerimientos de la F1, pues una vez que termine el TPS, se sugiere que vaya a un abogado para evaluar su caso, porque ya no tendría oportunidad de volver a recuperar la F1. Entonces, es importante que visite un abogado para chequear, revisar qué opciones tendría en caso de que no se siga manteniendo su estatus F1.
Okay, next question. Yeah, so there's no restriction on the status. You can seek the TPS. So if you have a J1, it's okay. If I'm granted TPS, do I have to maintain my F1 status? I mean, that's completely your personal choice to what you want to commit to. I would say if you're thinking about that, at least wait till it's officially approved, because you never know, your case might not be approved. If you're, that's a personal decision.
El abogado, do you want me to translate that?
Yeah, that'll be good.
Okay. El abogado insiste en que, bueno, la decisión de dejar o no el estatus de la F1 una vez sea aprobado el TPS es una decisión personal. Sin embargo, por lo menos sugiere que mientras el TPS no sea aprobado, no dejen de asistir a clases y cumplir con todos los requerimientos de su visa F1.
Okay. So dual nationality, if you missed that question, we talked about it earlier. It will be on the video. So just because you have another nationality does not make you ineligible, but I won't say more than that just because I think we're getting close to the time. So this question I wasn't sure about. Will applying TPS negatively impact my ability to get a tourist visa in the future? Applying for TPS, no, but of course, there's all these other factors that go into it. What was your status when you applied for the TPS? Did you fall out of status? Did you have an immigration visa pending? Did you have an asylum pending? So I can't answer this question generally speaking, unfortunately.
El abogado no puede responder esta pregunta específicamente, ya que depende exactamente caso por caso qué estatus tenía, qué pasó antes de que la persona tuviese una aprobación de TPS. Por tanto, pues es algo que tiene que responder individualmente.
For this question, it's close to a duplicate. I'm an OPT. Does start perm process with my employer. Should I apply for TPS in parallel? Register at minimum.
Regístrense. Esa
Okay.
es la respuesta.
Can you leave the country when you register for TPS, but prior to approval? I mean, there's a lot of nuances here. If you have a valid status and a valid visa, maybe, but you want to maintain continuous residency, I would tell everybody in a COVID world, just don't do it. We don't know how long you might get outside for, and that might affect your continuous residency.
El abogado, una vez más, con respecto al viajar, dejar los Estados Unidos antes o después de ser registrado el TPS, considera que deben chequear, depende de cada caso, de qué tipo de situación de visa tengan, si tienen asilo, son pendientes, etcétera. Solicitar de nuevo la sugerencia legal de un abogado es importante.
Okay, next question. Okay, I'm in the US, but my spouse is not. Can I include my spouse in my TPS application? No, unfortunately, you have to meet the requirements. If your spouse was, here on March 9th, but, is not, they may still be eligible down the road, but everybody has to meet the requirements.
La respuesta para esta pregunta es no. La persona tiene que estar dentro de los Estados Unidos. Es uno de los requerimientos solicitados para el TPS.
Can TPS be a reason to deny my permanent residency in the future? Well, I mean, no, in short, but of course, if there's any fraud or improper information, of course, that could follow you throughout your immigration life.
La respuesta para esta pregunta es no en general. Sin embargo, por supuesto, depende de tipo de información que haya sido incluida en los formularios, etcétera. Depende de cada caso. Pues ya estamos hablando de revisar en detalle cada caso.
Okay. Can I apply for TPS myself or with an attorney? So this depends on you. I mean, people do it by themselves. The only thing I would say is that if you're cutting it close to the registration period, I mean, it's taking USCIS 2 or 3 months just to give us receipts, just to accept cases. So if you think that you can do it and you're not gonna, you know, risk missing it, some people do it on their own. If you have any complications, short stay, lack of evidence, criminal history, other statuses, I definitely would recommend it to have an attorney.
El abogado, si fueran que soliciten una ayuda legal de un abogado, debido a que pues podría haber cualquier tipo de complicación durante la solicitud o una vez que inmigración revise y tenga el paquete pues enviado, podrían estar solicitando algún tipo de otra evidencia que se les pueda complicar la situación, y el tiempo es hasta el 5 de septiembre. Por tanto, él sugiere definitivamente un abogado que sabe lo que debe estar haciendo y los debe guiar bien.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what this scholarship is.
I can jump in. So does applying for TPS negatively impact my eligibility for the LAC scholarship? So LAC scholarship, Latin American and Caribbean scholarship, it's offered in the state of Florida and at UCF. So no, just applying for TPS will not impact your eligibility for the LAC.
Según Cristina, dice que no debería estar afectando la elegibilidad de la beca LAC si están registrándose en un TPS.
Is there no, there's no quota, which is a good thing. It's not like an H-1B lottery, so that's good. Next question. The 18 months start March 8th. So that's the 18 months. So that period where the work permit will expire will be the 18 months for which the period has been approved for. So 18 months from March 8th, 2021. Next question.
Así es bien.
When the 18 months ends, like I said, in most cases, especially in countries where there doesn't look like it's gonna get peaceful in the near future, there's a strong likelihood, especially one of the same administration, is going to extend TPS an additional 18 months.
Con respecto a qué pasa cuando terminan los 18 meses, pues esperamos, si estamos en la misma administración, generalmente extienden una vez más.
Okay, next question. Yes, can I register for TPS and employment authorization later? Yeah, absolutely. We've mentioned that a couple times. And then I think that might be the last one. So I do want to make a quick comment. If somebody's asking, can I make a labor certification or perm process under TPS alone? Look, everyone, TPS is not going to give you the right to everything, right? It can allow you to work here, but it doesn't change the requirements for other visas, okay? So if you are required to maintain your status through a perm process and you've fallen out of the status, then TPS might not help you. However, if you're going to do a consular process perm, where maybe you're here and they're going through the paperwork and eventually you'll travel to get your visa, then maybe it will work for you. It's a very complex process, the perm process. You have to do the Department of Labor, you have to go through immigration, Department of State. So that's not something that we can generally answer. We answered this question. Oh, go ahead, Gloria. That one was good.
Well, I wanted to say, el abogado dice que el TPS no quita los derechos y requerimientos de las otras visas. Simplemente, pues, el hecho de tener TPS no quiere decir que tengamos derecho a todas las visas y todos los requerimientos. Entonces, es importante que ustedes tengan en mente qué quieren hacer, o sea, evaluar si se quedan sin estatus en algún momento y deciden hacer un proceso adicional, si tienen que hacerlo a través del consulado, etcétera. De nuevo, soliciten un abogado, soliciten una consulta de un abogado para que los pueda guiar bien al respecto.
Okay. We've talked about this asylum and the work permit. You do not need to file a work permit if you just need to register. And then finally, how can I get in contact with Attorney Mubarak? Our phone number and is 407. I think we have it on the next slide, right? Yeah, so here is our website and our phone number. We also have a YouTube channel, Instagram, and Facebook. We have a lot of videos on YouTube. We have a Facebook Live every Thursday at 6:30 where we cover different topics. So I would really appreciate it if you enjoyed today to follow us on YouTube and Facebook and Insta. I would very much appreciate that. As I mentioned, we do discount our consultations and our fees for UCF students. And I heard Christina say FIU, you know, y'all are welcome too. Just let us know that you saw this presentation. And VenSA, if you guys ever have an event or anything, you just let me know. This was a great turnout. And then again, thank you all for your very hard work.
Gracias a todos por participar y muchas gracias a abogado Mubarak y también a Gloria y a VenSA por todo su apoyo con este evento. Y les recuerdo que la grabación de la sesión estará disponible en el canal de YouTube de UCF Global. So thank you so much to everyone for participating. A special thank you to Attorney Mubarak and Gloria, as well as VenSA, for all of your support for this session and answering our questions. This session will be up on UCF Global's YouTube channel, so feel free to refer back to it to maybe get a refresher of those questions that were answered. So as we end, I'd like to say, vamos Knights, go Knights, charge on. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.